On floor 1 of the catacombs you will fight the first boss, Bonzo, but first you'll have to clear the dungeon. The main dungeon is a maze of rooms, some of them puzzles, some of them secrets to find and mobs to kill. Both finding secrets and completing puzzles will increase your overall score at the end of a dungeon, which allows you to get better loot. At this stage it is best to clear in groups, especially if you happen to run into a mini-boss. It's a bit slower, but it's an effective strategy for staying alive. As you clear the blood room, it is best to either lure mobs out one at a time or camp on top of the portal. When you enter the boss room, you'll see Bonzo. When the fight starts, Bonzo will start running around very fast. Focus on getting him into a corner because it's hard to deal damage when he's running around. After you kill Bonzo the first time, he'll revive himself, at which point the fight enters the second phase. During this phase, Bonzo will periodically stand in the middle of the room and shoot balloons, which can quickly drain much of the player's health if they stand out in the open. Hiding behind the pillars is an easy way to avoid dying to this attack. If you manage to complete the run, you'll get to open certain chests depending on your score. A few notable drops from this floor are the Bonzo staff and Bonzo mask. Both of these can be bought from dungeon chests. These, like many other dungeon items, have uses both inside and outside of dungeons. Some items can be starred, which increases their stats while inside of a dungeon. Starring weapons and armor is one of the most important parts of a setup, especially as you progress to the higher floors. Within dungeons you'll play as one of 5 classes: Archer, Mage, Tank, Berserker, or Healer. Mage is the easiest and cheapest class to play on floor 1 as you can deal range magic damage to enemies. Berserker is also another cheap option, but it requires getting much closer to deal damage. These are the 2 most viable classes for this floor, as such setups for both of these classes will be covered in detail. As for the others, Healer is good for survivability, but it shouldn't be relied on simply for that reason as you move on to the higher floors. Both Tank and Archer aren't great for this floor, as tanks take the damage of their teammates, and there aren't really any good starter Archer weapons right now. Most of the setups in the video rely on the player having at least Catacombs 2, which means you'll have to run entrance floor a few times before starting floor 1. This can be done with whatever gear you have on hand: Ender Armor, Glaciate Armor, and anything like it. When joining parties for both entrance and floor 1, it is best to avoid parties with high-level players, as sometimes these people will be using you to join higher floors solo. For all these setups, reforges for weapons, armor, and talismans are very important. You should get as many talismans as possible through collections or the auction house and work towards a maxed redstone collection, as this will grant the largest accessory bag size. As we go through each of the setups, reforges will be discussed in detail.
The budget tier falls into the 200,000 coin range. This is the bare minimum amount of gear you should have to play floor 1. For Berserkers, the most expensive item here will be a Raider's Axe, costing around 150,000 coins. Your Raider's Axe should be reforged to Spicy for maximum damage. Heavy armor is both cheap and tanky, and you should reforge it to Fierce for maximum damage. Generally, having a 100% crit chance is better than reforging everything for damage, so make sure this is your first priority. If you need more crit chance, reforging your Raider's Axe to Sharp and an armor piece or 2 to Pure should help. For talismans, you should reforge Epic and Uncommons to Strange, and all other rarities should be on Bloody. Mages should use a Dreadlord sword, and although it requires Catacombs 5 to use outside of dungeons, you can still use it inside of dungeons even if you don't have Cata 5. They are very cheap at about 5,000 coins from the auction house and should be reforged to Heroic. A heavy chestplate, leggings, and boots should be used, with dark goggles as the helmet. These will all be reforged to Wise for mana, but if you're having trouble surviving, consider putting Titanic on a few pieces. All of your talismans should be reforged to Bazaar for mana.
On to the basic tier. This falls in the 600k to 1 mil coin range, depending on the class. Berserkers will be using a Raider's Axe again, however, at this budget you can find one with maxed kills, which adds more weapon damage in about the 350k coin range, again with a Spicy Reforge for damage or Sharp for crit chance. In addition, leveling up your wood collection will give the Raider's Axe more strength. Unstable dragon armor is much more expensive than heavy, with a price tag of about 800k, but it's better for damage. This should be reforged to fierce or pure for more crit chance. Note that any dragon armor should not be dungeonized or starred, as that adds a higher catacombs requirement to it. The mage setup will be virtually the same as the budget tier, but with a few exceptions. An epic rarity heroic dreadlord sword is a bit more expensive but grants more damage and strength. 3/4 epic rarity heavy armor and dark goggles cost about 160k, reforged to wise or titanic if you feel a bit squishy. All your talismans should also be reforged to bizarre.
If you fall into this final tier, you're probably pretty rich for early game, or decided to get into dungeons later when you have more money to spend on it, as these setups cost upwards of 1,000,000 coins. Berserkers can opt to use either unstable or strong dragon armor, non-dungeonized. A full set of strong dragon will cost about 2.3 mil in comparison to the 800k unstable. Whichever armor set you choose should be reforged to fierce for damage or pure for crit chance. A flower of truth with all enchants from the enchant table will cost about 3.3 mil and has no catacombs requirements. Either dirty or spicy can be used as damage reforges, or sharp if you don't have a 100% crit chance. Talismans will be the same as before, strange on epics and uncommons, and bloody on everything else. Mages will use 3/4 non-dungeonized wise dragon armor and dark goggles at this tier, which is about 2.3 million coins, reforged to necrotic or titanic for more survivability. Necrotic will cost about 1.3 million to apply to the wise dragon armor, and can be substituted with wise if necessary. A heroic Bonzo staff is going to be your weapon of choice. You can usually find these on the auction house with ultimate wise 3 or 4 for around 3.5 million. Again, talismans will be reforged to bizarre.
That pretty much concludes the guide, but there are a few more last-minute things you might want to consider when playing Floor 1. We didn't mention pets in any of these setups as they aren't really necessary on Floor 1, but a few good options include a rare or epic Enderman pet, as well as an uncommon Griffin for Berserkers. At this stage, any pet will do as long as it gives strength, defense, or intelligence. In addition, when enchanting your dungeon weapons, always choose Smite over Sharpness. You can get Smite 5 from the basic enchant table, and Smite 6 is extremely cheap on the auction house. Hopefully this video helped you learn a bit about some Floor 1 strategies and setups. Thanks for watching.